So now I'm going to introduce you. Drum roll,
Okay.
please. You guys, I have someone so special for you. This is going to be a little bit different for the show because, we've been talking about aliens and spirits and all sorts of stuff. But what we haven't really talked about is just like everyday life and how metaphysics and the supernatural and the paranormal kind of creep into it. So today I brought you the best person I could possibly think of, both in spirit and in inspiration, is my friend Darren Knight. He is also known as the Turtlecreek Foodie. And Darren, hi, yes, wave, hello, tell everybody hello.
Hi. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. When I was watching your videos on Instagram, I love your narration voice. I love your narration, actually. And as you mentioned in our conversation catching up, you used to work in the cosmetic field. I totally forgot about that because I only know you now as the Turtle Creek foodie. I know you as like the domestic. I don't know. How do you describe yourself? What's your approach to cooking?
I think my approach well, first of all, thank you for all the compliments. It's so kind and sweet of you. And I really am, I have to say, just before we get into it, I'm so excited to be here on your new podcast show. I think it's fabulous. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is such I have such a passion around this topic. So I'm so excited to be here. I would describe Turtle Creek Foodie. I love that you said the word domestic because I don't even think I never have ever thought of myself as domestic.
I
Uh,
started going down the whole domestic goddess type of thing, and I caught myself and I was like, "No, let's get his take on it." Because when I think of domestic, I think of the happy homemaker and all of this stuff, but you're right, you're just kind of the guy that floats on your own feather, so, yeah, how would
I
you
do.
describe that?
Well, I think first of all, one thing that I really love and is I like to cook first of all as a single person. So a lot of these foodie chefs that are out here and right now I have so many different friends and we go live together and we really we have group texts and everything and we'll be talking. A lot of them are like stay-at-home moms. I did a live this morning at 6:30 this morning. They're in the
Guys,
time, but I
I
know we
was
did
like,
a
"Oh my
live from
god."
6:30 to 8 o'clock this morning. And I was like, oh my God. But the cooking mom, we were chatting, but she's got like kids. So I love her content because when she's cooking, she's making like a meal for everybody. And I have to like kind of I try to make meals that would be suitable for an entire family, but I also try to spin it in the idea that like I made this King Ranch chicken casserole the other night. And listen, it was heavy. You could anchor a boat with it. It was fabulous. But like I had to put it in the freezer because I don't have like six kids to feed it to. So I find that I feel like Turtle Creek Foodie really reaches a wide demographic in that regard that it's for everybody. I also am very passionate about no wasting food. So one thing you'll constantly hear me say when I'm cooking is if you don't have that ingredient, you can use this ingredient or just use what you have in your fridge because I really do believe in no waste and doing our part to limit food waste, which also plays into a bigger role of making sure that we're ending food poverty and doing our part to make
Yeah.
sure that we are taking care of those who can't afford a meal or don't have the luxury of throwing things out that are spoiled anyway. But yeah, that's how when you ask me, that's how I envision Turtle Creek.
You're right. No, that's such a great point because I grew up in a family of 5, and I've always had a passion and a love for cooking, so I low key feel like I'm living vicariously through you when I do it. I've always also wanted to start a YouTube channel and a podcast platform, and so for many years, I thought it would be makeup, naturally, because that's what I've done for the last 20 years. But everything changed over the pandemic for me, and of course, I've loved cooking. Cooking is also kind of like that same passion of mine. And so I also live vicariously through our mutual friend, Deandra Simmons, who just became a chef, and I'm so
A
thrilled with you
huge foodie
guys.
herself. She's a big
Huge,
foodie.
yeah. I hope she's
Yeah.
gonna. I should try to bribe her into doing the show. I wonder if she would do it.
Oh, totally.
I don't know. We'll have to cover that in a second, but yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for that, and I thought, well, maybe I'll do like a food platform, and I ultimately felt called to do metaphysics, and so that was my calling, and that's where I found myself. And I had actually tried to do like some makeup, but at the time, especially in the pandemic, I couldn't do people's makeup because we were all on lockdown and there was COVID. So there was a lot of other makeup artists popping up with videos, and especially with women. I think at the time I was a little bit more
Yeah.
reserved. I didn't want to do a video doing makeup on myself. I don't think I'm that pretty, nor do I think I have the face or the skin that loves makeup. So I wasn't going to do it on myself, and I couldn't really access models because of the lockdown. And so I was like, well, I guess I can't start a makeup channel. And then again, with the food stuff, I'm like, well, I'm cooking a lot, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything just shifted, but afterwards, we all kind of blossomed and came out with our respective things. But you've been doing this now for about 5 years, right?
Yeah, so 2018 is when Turtlecreek Foodie started. Yeah. No, you're so right. Like I first of all, Rhea, I love where you landed here. Like
Thank
I
you.
love this. This is great.
You've seen many iterations of me, including a couple of fun we don't remember nights.
I know. Listen, we had great time.
We
No,
have.
I will tell you, I love where you landed. I love this. It's a great look on you. Like it's kind of
Thank you.
fabulous. And I was like, when I saw it, I gagged. I was like, oh my God, I need to be a part of this. So I was so excited when you were like, oh, you should be a guest. I was like, you don't have to ask me twice. I will clear my schedule to be here because this is so fun. I love it. But no, I feel like you're absolutely right. Like the pandemic was so I feel the pandemic of our generation, like it was a generational disruption that
Yeah.
you only see like every 80 to 100 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're talking like 100 years before was World War I or World War II in the 40s. And it's kind of something that we went through that I think we'll look back on and be like, oh my God, we went through that. You know what I mean? It was insane, but it's so crazy. It was like a twister. It came in and just blew everything around, and people flew and landed in different directions that they never thought they would land. And that's where they land. And it's kind of bizarre and crazy all at the same time, but I love it. I love it in a way, you have to find the good in something that came out it's the silver lining, I suppose, of something that was so catastrophic.
Absolutely. And it's so freeing now because I recently just came out of the psychic closet and I posted this whole
Yeah.
manifesto on Instagram because I felt like I was living a double life. I literally felt like I was back in the closet again. I've been on a spiritual journey now for several years. And I think part of being a makeup artist, and you were a makeup artist too, right?
Yeah, so I started out as like a makeup artist, and then I ended up moving up and company well with a couple of different brands and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the
Did you?
industry is like a lot.
It is. And did you ever get intuitive hits on the people you were doing makeup on? Because that's kind of how it started for me.
Wow.
Like,
Okay, so I love that you say that. I really believe that people that have this kind of very close when you're working closely with somebody, like, right, and
yeah,
it's doing somebody's makeup is extremely intimate. And I find myself to be extremely intuitive. I can read something very quickly and not have to like and I wouldn't know as far as like saying I'm going to harness this and put a label on it that I am, I would say that I'm very much an empath. Like I can understand a dynamic very fast,
yeah,
which I think plays a big role in some of the things that I've done or the success I've had in my life because I've been able to read something really quickly, gauge it, and then style step how I need to around it, which is something that is, a lot of folks don't have that. And they're not able to gauge a situation or a dynamic. I think that I have worked on people or worked with people even like you almost know their intentions before they know their intentions. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
knew of somebody, can't say their names, and I don't even know if I should really talk about it. But it was one of those things I knew that they were not doing right. And I didn't know exactly what they were doing, but it was somebody I worked with, and they actually reported to me, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, I know that this is gonna end bad, but as when you're managing somebody, you can't really, like, and this was a
Yeah.
long time ago, so it wasn't like it was like last year, but I knew something was going on that was egregious. It wasn't allowed. And I knew, I was like, when I find out about this, I'm gonna have to fire this person. And, like things like that, like, I've always been a good judge of character and
Yeah.
understanding something, and, ultimately ended up firing their ass. I think that goes to prove a point, though, that, like, I could see that a mile away, and when you
Yeah.
smell bullshit and when you have that gut instinct, and I think every human is equipped with it. Now, whether or
Yeah.
not we follow our gut instinct is another thing, but I really believe that we all have the innate ability to be intuitive. Some are better than others, but I
You
do. I
know,
think that's
that's exactly how I
true.
see it, and I share that I am very empathic, I'm very observant of my environment, of people's energies, body language shifts, and at first, I just thought I was, like, a really paranoid individual and maybe even slightly traumatized, and then I realized that is a form of intuition, and it
Mhm.
is I've kind of connected you have different types, there's different clairs, like clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and you
Mhm.
kind of feel them all in different processes of the body, different energy
Yeah.
centers. And I would say that, like, when you get that gut instinct about someone, it's in the gut. That's why they call it a gut feeling. That's
Yeah.
like a sense of, intuition. And I feel like a lot of people don't have access to that or access to the understanding of it. And that's kind of why I've gone the way that I've gone working with people. I've been in their space and sometimes I've gotten messages from deceased loved ones that have crossed over, I'll get a name and I'm like, who is Rosalind Sanchez? And, the girl in my chair is like, oh my God, that's my grandmother. It's like, is your grandmother on the other side or she crossed over? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, whoa, I think she's
Yeah.
here. I
Yeah.
don't know why that name just popped into my head, or like you said too, I've worked with people that have given me really bad vibes, or when they're pathological liars and they're telling me a story that is maybe 50% true at best. I'm like, whoa, this
I
is
can
so
read that
weird.
like a book. Like, read
Yeah,
it like a book. I can feel
yeah,
I may not always just say, "Oh, you're a liar,"
yeah,
but
yeah.
I
How
will.
do we act? We're just like, oh, that's nice.
I do. Oftentimes, I'm just like, "Wow, that's interesting," and then I move right along. I don't like to put that energy around me too much because it's too, it's there is a connotation of negativity that underlies somebody who cannot be truthful. And listen, don't get me wrong. There are little white lies that we share all the time just because you don't wanna talk about this or that, or you don't wanna tell the world that you had diarrhea or something. You know what I mean? Like, you wanna, that's everybody's business. You can say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I just wasn't feeling, great," or this or that. But like there is a major difference in somebody who is being deceitful and dishonest
Yeah,
and versus
versus
somebody who's just gonna like, flub in the details because they just didn't want to go into the rabbit hole or whatever.
yeah.
Like I get that. But yeah, I mean, I can smell that a mile away. I don't like to surround myself with it. I do think it's interesting. You mentioned something about people on the other side and having that ability. I don't have the ability to look on the other side, but I follow this woman on TikTok. Listen, I will sit there like I'm such an old lady. Like I'll just sit there on a Friday and just watch it. But I love her. She goes, I took a peek at so and so, and I can't think of her name, but I love it because she's constantly like peeking at these people. And I love how that she's respectful. And she's like, I asked her if I could take a peek at what she's doing. But you mentioned like crossing over and being on the other side. And she
Mhm.
talks about it like it's two different phases, which I thought was really interesting. So tell me about that. Cause you kind of mentioned, you alluded to like there was two different phases of it, or is there?
There are so many different ways of receiving energy, which I think first off was kind of mind blowing for me because I sat in on I got a reading from somebody who would become my one of my psychic mentors like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And he was like, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And then I thought about it and I was like, "No, yeah, I have been. I've
Yes,
had
I
so many
am.
weird, unusual things that have happened my whole life." And it's almost like spirit. and we'll say spirit as a collective whole was just knocking at my door my whole life, trying to get my attention, trying to say, "Hi, we need you to turn this on so you can help other people." And I can become a medium who can connect with spirits that have crossed over. So, I the to answer your question, sometimes I receive information psychically, which I would just say is like information floating in your energy field, in your aura. Sometimes an entity will come or a presence will come in, and that would be more of what I would attune to mediumship. And that's when it's like, okay, you have a spirit guide here, or you have an angel or something that's just popped up that has a message to give you, or it's your dead grand, or it's your dead grandfather, or it's your, it could be anybody. And so, yeah, there are transitions to my understanding from my experience is that when you first cross over, you kind of go into this life review phase where your soul reviews its life. It's kind of like what some people might call purgatory or something, only you're there for a purpose. You're there to review. Sometimes when people have near death experiences, they talk about seeing their life flash before their eyes. This could be a glimpse
Yeah.
into that consciousness. It's doing the soul review, but you basically review what you did. Y- I don't know that you're judged like Christianity would say you are, but you definitely have to reflect. And the interesting thing that I found is a lot of souls that cross over or that are on the other side collectively, they kind of join this whole ether of like a soul consciousness, all souls kind of floating together. Could be heaven, could be paradise. It's just you've passed the life review phase, you've moved over, and you're there to guide and be of help to your soul family who's still living on this earth. Sometimes souls will stay there until all of their soul families live out their contracts and then they move on. It's very fascinating though, because I've had spirits come in that were just about to reincarnate. And so when they come in, they're a little distant or they're a little fuzzy or they're a little
Oh, wow.
it's yeah, or I've had people come in who are fuzzy and disconnected because they died a lot longer ago than another entity coming in. So it's a way of showing me this is how you can tell this person who I am and they can validate it. I'm giving you foggy, faded, distant because maybe I was like the ex-wife of someone, but I really liked this girl that I'm now helping on the other side. It's really fascinating and it's so complex.
Wow.
But I will say the biggest thing I've learned is that once people cross over into the other side, it's like a veil has been lifted. So a lot of the negative traits they had as a human, if they've reflected and moved and evolved as a soul, they don't carry. There's no ego, there's no brain to go with that
Yeah.
soul consciousness. So sometimes I'll have people that come in and show me really wild, not so pleasant things, but it's a way for me to validate for that person. This guy represented abuse to you, or this guy represented an unsupportive environment for you. Maybe it was like a toxic father or something like that. But when they've
Right.
crossed over, it's like they see all of this, they see all of the things that they did that they maybe weren't necessarily proud of. And so they come in with a loving energy and they'll have like a loving message. And this person will be like, my dad was a dick. He would never say that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Dude, that's what he's saying is that he's showing me
Wait,
like,
that's what he's saying.
yeah,
He knows that he was like that, and he wants you to know, like, he's sorry
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. And
That's
so it's,
wild. That's so interesting. I feel like that kind of puts a little framework around understanding behind, what is, because I will say it's very fascinating to me. For the longest time, I say, for the longest time, I wouldn't say that I didn't believe in God or I didn't believe, I felt like when you die, you die.
yeah,
Probably over the last year and a half to 2 years, I have changed my position on that, and, I think some in the Christian church would be like, "Oh, that's blasphemy. I can't believe that you would do that." It's look, like, listen, dissect your own salvation. I can't. Like, I'm gonna do my own thing and you do you, and that's what we should do.
that
Um,
part right there.
I feel like, I feel like Ina Garten when she was, I don't know, she was on the 60 Minutes and she was like, she's the barefoot contestant. She was like,
The
"This
good
is what
vanilla.
I do. You can do whatever the fuck you wanna do, but this is what I do, and that's how I like it." Like, I feel like that's the best one-liner phrase I've ever heard in my life, but no, I just feel like I didn't have a lot of belief in that, and I don't know what shifted in me, but I do think that I think there's something beyond us that have no understanding for. I think that organized religion, and I'm not downplaying on anybody that is Christian faith or, Islam or Buddhism or anything Jewish. I find that organized religion was one of the first ways for the global population to govern people prior to democracy government. And it was in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church, when it came
Absolutely.
up, even in the architecture, it points straight up. You see these like Gothic, cathedrals pointing to heaven, because if you didn't live right, you wouldn't make it. And then they also found a way to, everybody had to pay tithes, and it was a form of tax to the church so that the church could become wealthy. And they found a way in the Renaissance period to make money off of artwork. So then you begin to see a lot of early European high Renaissance artwork. You see these devils reaching up at the soul, and then God is like reaching down with their hand, and Saint Michael the Archangel, and all of these things you see in like the artworks of that time period where people were buying in. That was the church's way of, and long and short, it was like a pamphlet that they would pass out instead of door knocking. They were just freaking you out, making you realize, like, if you don't live right, you'll be consumed by these hellish demons. And I
Yeah.
feel like that was the wrong way. I feel like that is, to me, that is just all hogwash. I can't get down around that. I don't
Yeah.
believe that there is anything like that in the afterlife. I really believe that the afterlife is made up of, like you said, I love how you said people are in review of what they did here. I feel like your soul is constantly on a learning cycle.
Yeah.
And where you're at, you're learning. And from that point, wherever you go after here, you're just going to learn more. And you take what you learned and it carries, and it goes from different things. I also think that the idea of time is it's time is relevant. I think it's all over the place. I don't think I think the idea of then versus now, there's no future or there's no past. It's all one. And we're all in the same sort of field in a sense. And I know that gets really deep, but the reason I believe that is because I think your soul transcends current time. I don't think it has an idea of time. And after you leave here, there is a absence of time. Time is something that we've created.
Yeah.
We base it on the how amount of times the earth circulates the sun. But I believe after this, I think in the spirit world, I believe there is no such thing. I think that
Absolutely.
it's
I would agree with you on
soul
that. And
transcend.
there's something that you said that kind of resonated with me that I could reiterate that is that if you go to the ocean or a body of water and that water gets poured into a glass, your body is the glass. The water inside your body is your spirit. So it is far greater. We're just a vessel. And that's even
Yeah.
used in biblical terms. But, to what you were talking about earlier as well, the certain religions throughout history didn't want people to read because that meant they were becoming educated. So that's why
Yeah.
mass is such a big ritual. I don't know if you've been to a Catholic mass before, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
stand
Yeah.
up, sit down, wine, this, that, repeat after the priest, repeat after the leader. And that the roots of that are because the public and the mass community were not really encouraged to learn how to read. So they were
Yeah.
like, I'm the educated one who knows how to read. You're going to repeat after me because you don't know how to read. And that is very fascinating. And it's all, not all, but a lot of it is fear tactic, fear
Oh,
mongering,
totally.
and then of course pandering to the whole thing. And even now that's happening with modern day gurus. I mean, I come from the philosophy of like, be your own guru, do your own research, read your own literature, find out what calls to your soul. And like Ina Garden said, that's what's right. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And you go do whatever the hell you're going to do. That's exactly where we need to be because even if I put myself in a position to educate other people, it's your divine right to say, "That doesn't vibe with me." No, I don't get it, and they can take themselves to a place where their soul will resonate and connect. But I think ultimately, like you said, we're all a part of something bigger, and this is a way of us experiencing and learning because, it could be like a video game or like The Matrix for all we know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, 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 no. I totally agree. I do think that there is, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that there's a hell after? Because I don't think that there's a
Hmm.
hell. I don't think that there's a lake of fire where people go, but I don't know. I could be wrong. What are your thoughts?
I think we're one step above hell, dimensionally speaking. Um, and this is not to any dimensional literature or like the 12 dimensions or anything like that. I mean, metaphorically, I think that this is a really dense, rough place to exist on the third dimension here where we are. And it is emotionally painful. It is physically painful. Our spirits and our souls, when they transcend, don't experience that because they don't have physical bodies. They don't have, what they experience is much different because as a soul, it's just a different vibration and a frequency. Whereas we are a physical
Mhm.
body and we have a density. We're a very dense thing. And I've read in a lot of literature that they believe for a soul to be born into this reality is one of the most painful things a soul could ever experience, which is funny because everybody's so scared of death. Everybody's
Yeah,
so scared to die and how to die. And oh, death is so scary and it's so painful. But I don't think people realize that when you're born, you're in this warm, cozy womb. And then suddenly you come out into this frigid air and somebody's
yeah.
slapping your ass and you're crying and you're like, oh my God. And the light's burning your eyes and you can't see. And you're just like, help me. Cause you've just gotten ripped out of that warm bed. That's your first welcome
I
to the
mean, reality
world.
gets that if somebody rips me out of bed and slaps my ass, I'm not gonna lie. No, I'm joking, but no, you're so right though. That's so true. I mean, my God, like it is very, very true. That's wild. I never thought about that. So a dimensional, you believe we're one dimension above hell. So
Yeah.
you
So
think that there is a
I would say my
layer.
other layer to hell would be that, and I've kind of discovered this in my journey. I don't know if I'm right because I feel like we're all experimenters and pioneers here with the
Sure.
spiritual world, but earthbound spirits, spirits that reject going into the light. So, like, say you lived a horrible life, and when you die, you've been indoctrinated to believe that you're going to hell. I
Mhm.
think that your thought and your conscious energy creates wherever you're going to. So if
I
you
agree
think you're
too.
undeserved, you see, when you show up and you see that light and you're like, oh shit, I'm going to go in there and do a life review and be judged. Fuck no, I'm just going to
Yeah.
stay back here. Or, I'm not good enough. I must be going to hell. And then suddenly their consciousness shifts into a dimension where they might get stuck. I've encountered a lot of earthbound spirits here who turned away from the light when it was there for them. And you kind of, it's like a sci-fi movie a little bit, but you have to like usher them into the light, Carol Ann, like go towards the light. And that's something that I've done. I have experience with, and it's a really profound thing when it happens because then they'll pop up with somebody. I had an instance where I was working with someone they had a loved one pass away in their house and they were thinking that they were being haunted. They weren't really sure. I investigated the house with a group of people that I was with, and I did find that presence was still there. And we had to connect it. It wasn't about cleansing the house, which is what the client thought it was. It was about directing that energy to where it needed to go. And basically,
Yeah.
I had to have the whole dialogue of like, it's fine. Go over there and call for your guides, do what you need to do, meet your family on the other side, like your helpers, whether you realize it or not, even if you're adopted or if you've come from the most tumultuous background ever. There's a spirit family guiding us every step of the way. They would not send us here without any help from the
Yeah.
other side. And so it's really fascinating that, yeah, I think that hell could be a way of spirits that are stuck on the earthly plane in this spiritual ghost kind of aspect. And they just haven't made it to the light or they're scared of the light and they don't think they're worthy of it. Again, I believe that when we cross over, we hit like a life review, we see all of and it's very interesting too to go back to penance and atonement and Catholic, the Catholic, use your words, Ray, the Catholic procedure of doing, oh God, what is it called? Confession.
Oh,
Confession.
yes. Yeah.
It's something that I've learned in my spiritual journey is that I've had to really connect with the higher consciousness or God to reflect and ask for forgiveness and to accept my karma. Because if I did something shitty in my 20s or my 30s or like 2 weeks ago, that karmic debt will have to be paid at some point. And so it would be far less painful for me emotionally or spiritually in a life review if I was shown all these shitty, horrible things at my worst moments and I was completely detached from them. Rather,
Yeah.
being mindful and going back and saying, man, I don't like how I conducted myself in this instance.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, we're all human. We have those emotions. Some of us are better at controlling them than others. But, to be able to accept it and hit it head on and then just say, okay, give me whatever to deal with now. Let's get it over with. Give it to me now. I don't want to face it in my life review, and so that's kind of
Right. Yeah.
my approach to just dealing with my unhealthy behaviors or things that come out of myself. So I think it's
Do you
all,
think that brings up a really good point. So I feel like
we're
a
getting
lot
deep.
of times do what?
We're getting deep this
I know.
morning.
No, no, no. I love it. I love this. So I feel like in a lot of ways, some of the things that happen, like when it comes to the way I deal with certain things, like I believe that I don't necessarily believe in tit for tat, but if somebody wrongs me, I don't mind like being direct. Like I'll be direct to somebody and I can be a bitch in their face kind of thing. And I don't mind doing that. I'm very known for that. Like I'm a bubbly, nice, kind person. But
Yeah, you are.
if you do something wrong, or I see, and a lot of my close friends know this about me, I'm very much you made very bad mistakes. And unfortunately, some people don't align with this, but I think that you have to pay for your mistakes. Whether it's, I'm not saying I'm going to like reach out and be some vigilante or something,
You're the
but I'm
judge and
just saying,
jury.
like, I don't mind being like, I know that this person is a bad person and you should be very careful, like, behind their back. Or I just like say it like it is kind of
Yeah,
mentality. I'm very
yeah,
much like that. And I believe in that. Although now I'm like wondering maybe I shouldn't be so like, but I don't know. I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe, I don't know. I do have a unique, like, I'm very much not a crowd follower. I was on Last Letters podcast with Jeremy
yeah.
Locke, which is funny because Jeremy Locke actually popped into my live this morning when I was live with Cookin' Mama
No
earlier this
way.
morning. But I love him so much.
I
And
do too. Love his podcast too.
I adore his podcast, but I was so thankful to be a guest on his podcast. And he mentioned to me, he goes, "Oh, come on, you go out and do all these things." I said, "Jeremy, no, like I'm very much a homebody. Like I think people get a lot of misperception that I am a people person and I love being around wonderful people. But
Yeah.
the terms are, it has to be on my terms. Like I will never go to a bar. I'm not a big bar person. If I do go to a bar, it's gotta be quiet enough where I can hear you and understand what you're saying. Like,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to a gay bar is not my thing, or going to somewhere there's, like, boots and cats and boots and cats. I don't that's not my jam. I would much rather have one around the dinner table and just have that quiet evening in. But I think that plays a lot into what you appreciate about other people. I believe I'm that way because I enjoy understanding the dynamic of people and feeding off of their energy in a way that's not preoccupied by bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry for the word,
No,
but I mean, that's
no.
how I feel about it.
I feel like that's kind of how I found my voice in this community, because I have been meeting other like minds where we're all about growth and growing. And
Mhm.
to what you were talking about earlier, though, I feel like there's nothing wrong with being a mirror to someone's shitty behavior. If
Their energy, like, I'm a fan of
matching
that.
or just putting up boundaries, saying,
Yeah.
"This is happening. I'm not gonna let you, but also I see you," as Nini would say. It was
Yeah.
Nini, right? She was like, "I see you."
I do.
Or
Yeah, I
or
do. And I prefer, some people don't like to show their card. I like to show my card. If I know that you're shitty, I want you to know that I know you're shitty. And I
Yeah,
have no problem being that kind of a person. So I don't know.
yes. And on the flip side, I think that the spiritual growth development has been when I see that come out of myself, then I feel like part of me lost my power because I was
Yeah.
so affected by it that I felt the need to react. And
Mhm.
it's the reaction for me now that every time I react to stuff, I'm so aware of it now because I'm like, shit, I just gave my power away. I just reacted to that. And it drives me nuts now because my power is so valuable to me. It's my energy, it's my thought, and I'm like, where do I want to put that energy? Do I want to put it in like Zen and peace and happiness, or do I want to put it to the petty bitch in 5C across the hallway who's like always being, inconsiderate of everybody else. So I think there's a healthy way to go about it. But really
But
for
do
me,
you
it's
think that
just react.
reacting do you think like, this is the thing though, like, I love this conversation. Okay, so but do you think that reacting is giving away power or is it exerting your power? 'Cause
Hmm.
I think there is a I think there's 2 different I think it I think it can go 2 different ways because, yeah, you can give away your power and, like, when you react and when you should have maybe you reacted wrong, but when you react to a certain point and I feel like some reactions are appropriate, and maybe
Yes.
you're
And
not giving away your power to the point where it's like,
no, I absolutely think that is a tribute to wherever somebody is on their journey and their evolution. For me, like I'm
yeah,
somebody who gets so triggered by mean people and
yeah,
rude people. And so when I have that visceral reaction, it's very personal. And I've now let myself get heated over it. But I 100% believe that there are people far involved than me that can react in a way that's just pure information. And they're not heated about it. They're not losing their power. They're not, it's just, I more speak for me that it's like, I have to be
yeah.
super mindful because I used to be very reactionary. I'm Latin. I grew up in a Latino household. Our way of communicating is like shouting over one another and talking over one another. We're very passionate people.
I
And
love
so
that. Love that. That's like I love that. I need to marry a Latin man. I'm on a journey. I'm saying
Mm,
it right here on the Woo Woo podcast that I'm
let's call
ready.
it
I'm
in.
ready. I'm taking applications from Latin men only, please.
Listen, just don't go feuding with this guy on Instagram about his birria recipe because he just couldn't take it. But I digressed. Speaking of recipes though, I've been dying to ask you this question. All right, just envision it with me. Any celebrity or person, famous or well known, who is now no longer with us on the earthly plane, who would that person be that you would have over for dinner? And what would you make them?
Oh, this is so good. This is a great question. Okay, so
I want a cocktail too. Give me full Ina, Sandra Lee, all of it. I want it all.
listen, I am because listen, I think this is a really good, and it can be dead or living or
Uh,
no.
let's go with let's go with crossed over. Let's go with
They're
not of
gone.
the
Okay,
living. Yeah.
they're passed on. Okay, because I do have a guest list for both, but I would say those who have already passed, I certainly think that I would need to have Judy Garland.
Oh,
Love Judy. I think she's a gay icon and for good reason.
yeah.
I'd love to hear her thoughts, but I'd also like to have so her at the table. I definitely would invite Joan Crawford and Hedda Hopper.
Oh, I thought you meant Joan Rivers. I
Absolutely.
was like, I love Joan Rivers.
I mean, I would have Joan Rivers too. She can come. I'm happy to have her. But I really would love to have Hedda Hopper. Absolutely, because I mean the gossip
The
of
tea, I
Hollywood
know the
right
tea
there.
that would be
Yeah, the
spilt at
tea
that
that old
table.
bat has in her handbag is the extra piping hot. So I would love to have Hedda Hopper. I think I would certainly love to invite. mm, I'm trying to think, like outside of Hollywood. Really, I would love to have like a former president. Like I mean,
Like a Jimmy Carter?
he's not dead. Is he dead? No.
Oh no. Oh my God. Oops. Or Ronald Reagan. I meant Ronald Reagan or
No, not Ronnie. I
JFK.
don't think I want Ronald Reagan. Although he would
What about
probably get
Abe?
along great with Hedda and
Yeah,
Judy because they all came up in the same era of the
they
golden age of
did.
Hollywood. But I will say, I mean, I don't know. As far as males go, I definitely would love Frank Sinatra. I think that would be a lot of fun. But if
God.
I invited Frank, Frank would have to be, and I mean this with all the love in the world, I would need him to be honest about his dealings with the mob. Like, I would want him to tell all the tea. Like, look, you're gone. Let's just talk it out. Let's be real. We know, like, we want to know.
Mhm.
List the name, you know?
Mhm.
So I would want to know a little bit about that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I
Mhm.
think if I could be living, I definitely would invite all those people. See, I'm all about inviting a diverse but compatible guest list. Like, I love
Yeah.
that because I think we would get along. But I definitely would invite, well, I certainly
Well,
would
who's
invite
living that would
Alyssa Edwards. I love
yeah.
Alyssa Edwards.
Oh, yeah.
Invite her.
Yeah.
But I know her personally, and I think that she's fabulous. Like, I would
Yeah.
invite her.
I've worked with him
And
before,
then
or him, her, they. I've worked with them before, on a dance shoot catalog we used to do. He would
oh,
direct all of the dancers, and, he would come in as Justin, but I was always
oh,
waiting
I
for a
yeah,
tongue
Justin.
pop.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I love Justin. I haven't seen Justin in quite a while. It's been a while, but the times that I've hung out with Justin, I just always adored his energy. He is a class act. She is a class act. Alyssa Edwards is extraordinary, but I would love that. Honestly, I'm thinking, and I feel like I have to fill up my guest list. I can seat 12 for dinner, Ray. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm like looking at the table and I'm counting off really quick. The table's over here, but I'm like, I need to
Yes.
figure out who would I have? But yeah, I mean, God, I would, oh my God, I would invite the queen, but only right, like 1952 version of Her Majesty. I want to know what it's like, or maybe 1962. So give her 10 years as the queen
Yeah,
and give us like, what was it like being the queen when you had to meet with Jackie Kennedy? Like,
that's so
and she had
cool.
been talking shit about you behind your back kind of thing, like,
That wench.
yeah, I know. Bitch.
I
Anyway.
love this. I love this. So what would you cook then? What would be the
Oh,
meal you
well, my
prepared?
God. If the queen were coming to my house,
You just raised the stakes, bro. I'm sorry. You were like, oh my
listen,
gosh,
everybody else, I could have made like fried chicken and called it a day, but the queen is coming.
the
Like,
cold is coming.
I feel like, I answer the phone and I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh, the queen is coming kind of thing. But like, I don't even know. Like, God, what would I make? Probably like beef Wellington or something, that she would just
Yeah.
like. I don't know. I don't know what she likes. Maybe I would just
Yeah, I don't
call
either.
it a cocktail event and serve hors d'oeuvres. I'm like, "I'm
We're all trying to
sorry, we're just gonna have
we're
hors
all wearing
d'oeuvres
bustles
here."
and corsets. We can't eat, but we'll
I
drink and be
know, like,
merry.
I don't think we're allowed to speak to one another. Her Majesty is at the table. Like, when she stands up, everybody has to stand up. When she sits down, everybody has to sit down. When she's done eating, everybody gets their plate taken away. Like, it's the whole rule of the
Yeah.
royal protocol,
Yeah.
like, the office of protocol, at Buckingham Palace would probably be in touch prior and let Judy and, Frank and everybody know, like, these are the rules when you meet Her I actually, they probably all met Her Majesty, the Queen.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Had to
That's so funny. I love that.
had to be the odd,
You just completely like, yeah, that dinner party is just wow,
I mean, it would
scary.
be a
I'm
fucking
like, I'm suddenly
fabulous dinner party.
intimidated. It would, but it's like, oh my gosh, and you see the way the royals celebrate. When they celebrate, they celebrate.
Yeah.
It goes on for days, literally. And it's funny because I've been having quite a few guests over across the pond um, on my podcast lately, and some of those episodes will start airing. But it's really funny how different their humor is. And like anytime you mention the queen or anything, they always like roll their eyes. It's like
Oh, do
we can't.
they? Is
Yeah,
that
I'm like we.
they don't like the Queen? That's too
I guess
funny.
it's like the same with us and people
As I just
reference. Yeah,
rolled my
exactly.
eyes,
And you're
I
like,
did
oh
not
my
I
god.
was like, "Oh god, yeah, I know." Yeah, listen, I get that, I get that. I think the royals, I don't know. First of all, Harry and Meghan, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to, like, sidebar and go down
No, I don't care because I would love to know the ghosts that are creeping up in that palace, if you know what I mean.
huge. I bet there's some crazy ghosts up in
Oh,
there. I bet
babe.
Harry and Meghan, I feel like that energy is toxic. Like, I feel like they've got some hard toxic energy, and I don't really know. I find him to be, like, very, I think he's very self-aware and he comes off like he's aloof. But I really believe that he knows what's going on. But I think that she is incredibly manipulative and
Really?
knows exactly what she's doing. Yeah, I have this. I do. I think that there is, I know that's a weird stance and not everybody agrees, but I just feel like there's
No,
so
I've seen
much.
I've seen Twitter. I think a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah, I just feel I don't I find I'm over here writing a cookbook about saving food waste and or limiting food waste and feeding people who are hungry.
Yeah.
And she's over here crying about being a princess locked in a palace. Like, get the fuck out of here, bitch. Like, are you sorry, pardon my French, but I'm just like, for real? Like, are you seriously upset because you married a prince? And then, like, whenever they were filming that documentary, and she was like, I didn't really know who he was. And I was like, do you live under a rock? Like, what do you mean you didn't know who he was? Of
Yeah.
course you knew who he was. You're a liar. That's the bullshit that I was telling you about. Like, she's a liar. She is a
Yeah.
liar far from good. And there's something very, very, very dark about her. I'm not a big fan of her. And I think that,
Yeah. It's
um,
sad.
I think everything that's playing out for them is a direct result of who she is as a person. I really believe that,
Isn't that
but I could
interesting?
be wrong.
I feel like the same could go for Harry. You've heard all the rumors that Harry isn't Charles's son, and we don't know. They
Yeah.
might know. But I think that plays a lot into it as well about getting kind of shunned and kicked away, almost like the bastard child of the palace. And I think that that's where she was able to like sink her clutches into him and really get him because now they're like two rebels together on their own.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe I get from them. It's very
Yeah.
fascinating. But I also, I see so many people on Twitter or what is it called now? X, whatever.
X. Yeah.
I try not to go on there often. There's a lot of toxic, just shit that I see on there. But I feel like every time I open my Twitter, there's somebody commenting or retweeting on a Meghan and Harry post. And I'm like, give me a break. It's like the Kardashians. I don't care. I don't
I know.
care. And my dad right
I
now, he
know.
just came in for a visit. My family came in, and Meghan Markle has never been on my radar for anything. And
Yeah.
he has started watching Suits, which is, I guess, a show she was in. And he was, like, obsessed with her. She's such a good actress. I just thought she was kind of a, not really an interesting person, and he's all with the tabloid stuff. But every time, that's what they would do when we weren't going off and sightseeing is he would wanna sit here and watch Suits. And I was like, "I don't think she's that remarkable." Like, and she's like a sour
Megan,
bar
not
character.
remarkable.
She's Megan, not remarkable. I'm like, "I don't get it, but okay." But people seem to be fascinated with her one way or the other, but I like your take on the energetic approach. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting people on TikTok doing, like, body language readings and, like, card readings and stuff on them. I personally would love to do that salacious stuff, but I have to pull back because I am doing professional readings for some people coming up, and so I'm just like, "Oh, I don't want that to come back and haunt me." And
Yeah.
just like this podcast could, I could be talking about spirit and my thoughts on it this year, and then 2 or 3 years from now, who knows what could change.
Yeah.
But I think it's a
Yeah.
good learning experience as you understand, like, as a content creator, we put stuff out there and we might look back at a recipe and cringe 5 years from now or a podcast, and I
Oh,
don't know, I think that's
yeah.
the beauty of growth, though,
Yeah,
That's the beauty of
it is a beautiful growth. I will say this, I have recently learned, oh god, Ray, that resonates with me a lot, like, understanding, like, "Oh, I did this, or I've done that, or I've put this out there," and I feel like in a lot of ways that I you come to terms recently, I feel like I've really hit this, especially with the book coming out and all of the things, but I you have to come to terms with being unapologetically yourself, regardless of what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
And, and we do things that we're like, "Oh god, what was I thinking?" But it's part of it, especially when you put yourself in a public stage, and people have the
Uh-huh.
ability to consume what you're doing. I feel like people are just gonna see what they're gonna see. They're gonna judge you however they wanna judge you, and I find that, you know, I don't know, it's very hard. I just have to be unapologetically me, and, I have a really close, well, I say a close friend, but he's kind of a mentor to me, and he is a content creator as well, but what he was saying is just like, you just can't give a shit about what anybody thinks. Like, you just have to continue doing what you're doing, and people will like it or people will not like it. Either way, they're both consuming it. So, well, what does it matter, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. And that's why, like, I used to get really salty in my comment section when people would be ugly about a recipe or this or that. And I finally got nowhere now. It doesn't even phase me. I just say, thanks so much for commenting and liking the video or commenting on the video. I really appreciate it. And it just pisses them off even more. But how you deal with trolls. No,
What if
I hear-
it's your psychic dinner party, your medium, it's the dinner party from hell, like on Housewives of Beverly Hills. Remember with that psychic medium, Alison Dubois, which, was kind of crazy. I just recently rewatched that episode. I started going back and rewatching from the beginning. And I mean, first of all, like the Taylor Armstrong stuff, how dark. But
Oh,
that dinner party
I
from
don't watch it. I don't watch it. It's so crazy. Like, what happened?
You've never seen the Dinner Party from Hell episode with Camille Grammer where she Oh my god. Okay. All right. So we're going to become that podcast for a moment. Guys who are not into reality TV, I'm so sorry. On season 1 of The Housewives of Beverly Hills, Camille Grammer happens to be good friends with Alison Dubois, which her and her husband Kelsey created the show called Medium in collaboration with her. It's based on Alison Dubois' life. And she is a psychic medium, and she was also kind of helping police solve crimes and cases.
Oh.
Anyway, she invites her over to dinner and just she gets shit faced, like hammered shit faced. She's smoking on her e-cigarette before they were a thing. And in the house, she's just very free in Camille's house. But she tells Kyle Richards that Mauricio will never emotionally fulfill her ever. Takes sip from e-cig, looks around like crazy Jack Nicholson. It's hilarious. It's
But can
hilarious,
we do we think that she was wrong?
right?
Because
I
I
mean,
mean, I'm
anybody
like
with an Instagram, right?
I'm not gonna let myself out to light a cigarette at this point because I mean, girl, that is some deep rooted shit. That's
It,
crazy. Oh my
it's deep.
God.
It's deep. Case in point, sometimes, actually, I had a very, I don't know that I can talk about that. I'll probably edit it out. But I had an episode recently, episode meaning like an actual behavioral episode with someone. We all went to a little karaoke bar and we sang karaoke in North Hollywood. And I was pretty drunk. Like I was like at least 5 or 6 tequila shots in plus a cocktail. And
Yeah.
I was with this guy who I was like, this is going to sound really weird, but I was like, you're single right now, right? You're kind of grieving a breakup. And he's like, yes. And I said, well, it's like, did that person pass away? He said, yes. I was like, she's here. I said, it's very weird how she's coming in because she's coming in. I said, so now I don't feel so off. Um, I started seeing that she committed suicide. And her message to him was just like this overwhelming, like, it's okay to move on. You did what you did. You did what you could. You're fine. But it was so odd to tell a stranger that I was just getting to know that day. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is going to sound so weird. But then also, I was like, I shouldn't be conducting myself like this, especially if I want to be professional and working with people. I can't just get drunk at parties and be like, oh my God, I'm glad I got the message out and I'm glad that I could help him with it.
Yeah.
But it was that learning lesson for me that it was like, I've got to be more careful with this, especially now that it's more open, that I
Sure.
can't be getting schnockered and giving out fateful messages.
And get creep. I know. Listen, it is what it is. We've all been there. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes, you like to show your talent. Sometimes I get drunk and want to show people my boobs. But I mean, that's what you got to do, right? I mean, but I will say this. I do think you were kind of talking about that. I don't know. I have. serious moments. There was something I was going to tell you about getting schnonkered and going there. I was in a room. I don't know that this has anything to do with a spirit so much as I think it was, what do they call it? Like, psychokinesis or telekinesis kind of energy.
Mhm.
But I was in a room at my house when I lived at the Renzi, and listen, I have witnesses that can back this up. This is not made up. My friend and I, actually, she used to report to me at a job, and her and I love her. Rachel is her name. I can say her name because she wouldn't care. I adore Rachel so very, very much. And Rachel has a lot of she empathy. She's an empath. She understands different things, and her and I get each other very closely on that level. And one day I think we were day drinking at my place. And you know how it is. Like, you're like 4 cocktails in and you're like, oh, this is great. And we had gone to the farmer's market and put some like I had gotten some plants for the balcony, and we were just like giving like our Mother Earth side some attention, and all of this stuff. And I always feel like Rachel and I are like in our past lives, we're like sister witches or something. Like, there's something there that's very connected. We both know it. I love it. I don't know. It's very bizarre and so extraordinary and so nurturing to my soul when I'm around her. Like, I invited her for lunch. I invited her to
No, I
lunch,
love it.
and I cooked lunch for her because we didn't have any time. She was in town for a business meeting, and I said, just stop by for lunch. I'll make lunch. And it was the most extraordinarily wonderful moment just to like sit in her presence and have lunch with her and just like absorb her energy, because we just get each other on this weird level. But we were sitting there, and this is where I get in this kind of like, I believe, I don't know what happened, but we were sitting there, and we were talking about like harnessing energy and being able to like, be an empath. And I looked at her when we were like 3 sheets to the wind, and I said, I love you, but there is also a very dark side to you that I don't have. And it's a darkness that I don't think you even realize that you have, in a way. And I said, I believe that it can be very detrimental to you, but I also think that there is just there's something in you that can be dark. I don't know if it's a spirit that's latched onto you. I don't know if it's something that is in your soul. I don't know if it's just me being crazy. And at that very moment, every light, the entire power went out in the apartment. Everything went
Wow.
dark. And I was like, "Rachel," and she goes, "Oh, shit, it's like, girl." I was like, "This is insane. This is crazy." And I was like, "That's so weird." I was like, "I don't wanna talk about this right now anymore," because it didn't frighten me, but I was like, I felt like we were edging into a level. I guess I say this to say this. I think that when you drink, you release certain inhibitions about yourself that allow you to come out with things that you wouldn't normally say to somebody. I would have never said that to her just to say that to her. I would, but we were drunk and I said that. And I don't know what happened, but I really believe the power went off for about 30 seconds and then it came back on. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no storm outside, there wasn't anything going on, it was just bizarre. I was like, "How do you explain that?" I mean, we can't explain it. It could have been,
I mean,
it
the
could have
real
been whatever.
question, Darren, is did you do it psionically or psychokinetically, or did you have a premonition that you were like, honey, you have a dark side, but really you were just seeing that the lights went out and you couldn't see her. She was in shadow because all the power went out and you were having a premonition. What is it, Darren? What is it?
I'm like, "You have a really dark side," and then everything goes dark. I was like, first of
Living to the
all, I
light.
really think I will say this, I think that she shit her pants. I think I kinda did a little bit too, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane." Like, I was a little I mean, it made my heart stop and flutter a little bit. I was like, "Oh my god,"
I
because
don't
I've
know,
never really
Darren,
had.
did you shut my camera off and then shut your sound off earlier? I mean, although I've had instances of doing interviews where I've had a can of hairspray fly off my bathroom counter in the other room or something fall in the kitchen or something like that. When always happens when I'm around an interview, before an interview, or during an interview with the podcast, which is very interesting. At first, I
Yeah,
was like, maybe somebody's bringing something into it. And then I was like, maybe it's my nervous energy finding a way out in the room, you know?
it might be, I don't know, but I just think it's so bizarre. Like, I just remember when that happened, and we had been talking about, everything and nothing, and talking about our spirits and, like, all of this energy. We were very She's very big into energy, and I love that, and I love hearing about it because 'cause I'm not really great at harnessing all of that side of me because there's also, I love to learn about it. I just don't know where my mind goes with it, but I love that when I said that, I was like, "I don't know, Rachel, I just feel like there's a very, very dark side." And to this day, we giggle and laugh about it, but I swear to God, the lights went out. Every light in the house, everything was off, and I was like,
Yeah.
and it went off, and then it came back on, and I was like, and she was like, in fact, I feel like maybe she was like, "Well, I better get going," like,
Look at
like,
the time. And
I know, she's
um,
like, "I'm gonna have to head out because
yeah,
clearly
and I
this is
think that also,
scary."
very much you have to be careful with, at least in spiritual practice, because sometimes you do ceremony or drinking wine or drinking to connect with spirits or ancestors or whatever. And but there is a sense of, I agree that when it lowers your inhibitions, you kind of, your conscious mind, your ego steps aside a little bit and you're a little bit more free. And I feel like
Yeah,
that's why people can be a little bit more open. I've heard that people will drink to numb themselves from that side, but for me it does have the opposite effect.
yeah,
It kind of
yeah,
makes me more open to information versus I wouldn't have been like that, a couple of years ago because I don't
sure.
know, I just wasn't as aware or tapped in or in tune to the whole thing. But I like that. I definitely see you embracing more of this, and I see you moving, like I said, I see manifestation and, like, magician and generator vibes all around you. So I think that the modern form of magic and witchcraft now in buzzwords is like manifesting. But before that, it was praying. Whenever you are putting the power of your voice, the power of your mind, and your intent together, that is like a powerful trio. It's like what is it, the trifecta or the mirepoix, so to speak, when you're
You're right.
cooking. It's like the celery, the carrot, the onion. It's like the Trinity. I feel like
The
it's the same.
mirepoix, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
The
it's
Holy
like
Trinity,
it's
yeah,
the Holy Trinity, baby. It's like if you put your mind to your word, to your heart, the power of that is insane. And I feel like that is now, all of the new buzzwords and the new age stuff is all manifestation and abundance and
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But this stuff has been around for years. So I definitely see that in you. I see that ability to just really put your heart to something and your intent into something, and it's gold. It's going to happen, whatever it is. So I'm
I
excited
love
for you.
that. I think that holds water so much.
What are your thoughts on manifestation?
I really think, especially the older you get, the more you realize, like, people use the word manifest so much, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost kinda like, "Okay, you're manifesting this, you're manifesting that."
Yeah.
I I don't know that I necessarily intend to manifest certain things, but what I will tell you is that in many cases, and I don't know if a lot of people have this, I don't know if it would be relatable to ambition or whatever that is, but there's something in me, and I feel like if I wanna do it, when I started Turtlecreek Foodie, I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
I made a decision that I didn't wanna work, and, I came from the cosmetic industry, and I had moved kind of high up in a regional position, and I was just, like, tired. I was so over it, and I didn't wanna do it anymore, and I ended up quitting my job, and I wanted 2 things. I wanted a hobby, and I wanted to adopt a dog, and I know that sounds kinda crazy, but I did. I did exactly that,
You
and the
did.
hobby, when you pour yourself into it, I never people say, "Oh, I would have never dreamed." But I feel like I wanted everything that I am getting. And it takes time for things to pay off. But I really do believe in the idea of manifesting. Like, I want to do, I remember, for example, about 5 years ago, after I started Turtlecreek Foodie, I had somebody take a picture of me and I was holding a plate of stuffed mushrooms. And I remember posting that and I was like, would you all buy a book if this were the cover and it was me like holding some stuffed mushrooms? And it cracked me up because I thought, "Oh, that will never happen." But in the back of my mind, I was like, "I'm gonna do that."
Hmm.
And one way or another, I didn't really know how it was gonna happen. I didn't know what the journey was gonna look like. It's not like I could foresee the future or anything, but it innately inside of me, I think that and I don't think it just stops with me. I think a lot of us have that intuition, if you will, whatever you say, what you were saying, kind of that idea that you can make what you want happen if
Yeah.
if you're really, really interested in doing it. And I think it's just an innate ability. I don't think there's no recipe for it. There's no whatever. And
I
I
mean,
guess
are we not all the chefs of our own life? Nobody wants to
right,
be a sous chef
I
to their
know.
own recipe, to their own menu. Come on now. People, take accountability for yourself. Take it from Turtle Creek Foodie right here. Oh my God, I got chills. If there's a bigger, profound message here, it's that we have the ability and the power to create. Honestly, in my journey through spiritualism, I keep finding this whole like God put this divine, sacred power inside of you to create, and
Yeah.
I think one of my big pet peeves with religion is like the passive Christians or the passive prayer person or the passive, it's like you can't be passive. God did not put you on here to lay on a bed in your bedroom eating Cheetos and wish and pray for bigger, greater things. No, he put you
Yeah.
out here to do them if you have the physical capacity and the mental capacity to do it. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. Even going back to what you were talking about, yourself holding a platter and you're like, "Is this the cover of my book?" And something spoke to me on that. I remember taking a few classes in Los Angeles a few years ago in the very neighborhood I live in. And I'd stayed at an Airbnb down the street. And when I was going to these classes every day, I was doing like prosthetic and special effects makeup courses. And when I was coming out here, driving to the studio every day, I was having this deja vu of like, I've lived here before. And I've been in parts of California, but I'd never lived in the Valley or in North Hollywood before. And so when I was
Yeah.
just driving, I'm like, I've been here every sunset, every sunrise, every drop, like all of it was just screaming to me. And then
Mhm.
literally not even a year later, I ended up moving to the very neighborhood that I was in. And I was like, was I having a future memory? Like, was time linear? Was I experiencing what I'm experiencing now in a
Oh, yeah.
separate consciousness? Like, I don't know that I manifested it more as my soul recognized it's going to happen. My soul,
Yeah.
like with you seeing, that holding that platter, your soul might have recognized, oh, yeah, I am going to be doing a cookbook. And you at the time would be like, huh? What do you mean? But it caught up
I
with
believe
itself.
that I believe that happens. I don't think that I think that it absolutely is a real situation. I really do. I think that I've had deja vu. I've had tons of deja vu. I thought for the longest time that everybody just has deja vu, like a sensation that I was here before or something else has happened. I get it
Yeah.
with people, I get places. And I thought it was just something that just it happens to everybody, but I do think that there is something to that. And Ray, I can tell you this. I believe when you go like where you live, where we habitate or where we make our home, I think that that has something to do with who we are as people. Like it helps us evolve when you live certain places. Like
Yeah.
I lived in St. Louis for many years. And still to this day, I have a very drawn. I know people are like, St. Louis, God, but I'm very drawn. It's very, very old. Like the Soulard neighborhood is like the French Quarter of New Orleans. It's old brick
Really?
streets, the 1700s. Yeah, because St. Louis was a major shipping city on the Mississippi, and it runs right to the French Quarter in New Orleans. So
Whoa.
you
Okay.
the history there is extremely old and French. It's old, St. Louis or St. Louis. So is a
Yeah.
obviously French king. But for the name. sake of the city, but, it was very much like, I just felt so like drawn to it. And I, if you would have asked me before I was moved to Dallas, if I would have ever left, no, I would not have ever left. I didn't want to leave. I would live there now.
I
There's
was gonna
something
say, do you
about
see
it that
yourself
just
going back
draws me.
there? Do you see yourself going back to
I
St.
don't
Louis?
know. I don't know. I don't know if I see myself going back there. I definitely see myself living not here some point. And I really want to live somewhere. I love autumn and fall. And that's what I miss about St. Louis. I miss that whole fall and autumn. And
Yeah,
but I'm really drawn New England and some of that area. I would love to live up in that area, but I don't know. I don't know where I want to live, but I believe that. I know that when I lived there, it was just, it felt so right. You know what I mean? It felt so home, like this is where
yeah,
I'm supposed to be.
yeah,
And it really took a minute for me to fit into Dallas because I did not feel that was Dallas. And I've
yeah,
been here now almost as long as I was in St. Louis, spring. So anyway, but
yeah.
it's
Dallas
weird
has
how
such a
you feel.
transient energy. Yeah, Dallas has such a transient energy, and I kind of relate with you. I'm craving like this nice sleepy town fall autumny vibe, and I've thought
Yeah.
about the Pacific Northwest, going to Washington or Oregon or something, but I don't really know. I'm still waiting for my soul to find that because my soul is craving it, and I like it out here in California. And actually, it was odd that when I wrapped 1923, the show I was working on this past year, I wrapped in January. It was raining heavily, constantly in California from January until like May and June. It was just gloomy all the time. We never saw the
Oh my
sun. There
god,
was this,
I was out there in May, and it was like May
yeah.
gray, June gloom. It's
I
horrible.
know, and I kinda loved
It's
it, but then I
horrible.
was like, "Wait," it's like, "But
Yeah.
it's warm and muggy." I just want like, if I'm gonna be doing this, I want cozy and I want
I know,
suits
cool,
and I
crisp, let me get my scarf out. Yeah.
yeah. So, I don't know, when you find that place, you let me know, and Zach and I will move out there too because I'm like, I don't know, we both kinda crave that vibe, and, I love California for the progressive people out here. I don't feel like I have to hide who I am in any sense, like, I can be
Uh,
woo-woo, and I can be gay, and I can be whatever the hell I wanna be out here because everybody is so free out here to do that.
yeah.
Um, but it would be
You
nice
know,
to carry
Washington's
that mentality
fabulous.
too. Mhm. There's a lot of crackheads up there, though. No offense, Washington.
I love Seattle, but I would totally live out in the country. I like
Yeah.
once I leave the city because I live in downtown, and I told Phyllis, my dog, this. We talk, and so I
Yeah.
was like, I want to get her a yard. Like I need her to have a yard. But I've said that I'm like, once I leave here, I'm going to the country. Like I want to be in the country. But part of my soul needs to be near my family. Like I know if you would have asked me this last year, I would have said, "You're crazy." That's like I would never say I would do this, but my soul needs to be near my mom right now,
Where's
and I love
where's
my
your family
parents.
at?
Missouri. They're in
Is there
Missouri. They're in South Missouri. But I just she came to visit me, and I love her, and I just feel like she's in a place where, like I just need to be near her. And I think that you have to listen to those little voices. There's time to do other things, but I don't know what transpired. I can't just pick up and move, but I do think that there is something to that. Like you have to listen to your inner voice or make time and do more or whatever it is. But I have this idea that I could move back or something like that and just be near family. I long for that. Like my soul wants that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much, Darren. So you've got a new cookbook out, right?
So it's my new cookbook. It's called Spoiled, and I'm so excited. My publisher is Found. They're based in the UK, but they are. It's an extraordinary book. It's about. It is called Spoiled, and the namesake comes
I
from
already love where this is
from
going. Yeah.
yeah, like, it's talking about using ingredients that are in your fridge before they spoil, right? And then doing our part to end food waste and also being more consciously aware of folks that, ending food poverty really and food insecurity. It's really something that's super passionate or I'm super passionate about. I really believe in limiting the amount of food that we just throw away and Americans in general just throw away. Uh,
Yeah.
it blows my mind, and I came from a very middle class family where a lot of times my mom was just using what she had in the fridge.
Yeah.
And,
Is
like
this now
sometimes you
when you
just
say
gotta
food being thrown away, is this supermarket or is this out of our own refrigerators?
just out of our own refrigerators. Like, I don't know about you, Ray, but like I buy things. And I've had to really like this is what really set me into this direction to want to do the book. But I'll buy stuff and I'll be like, oh my God, that went bad before I could get to it. Or I bought it with the
Yeah.
ambition that I would do this and I never used
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I want people to be more conscious of that. Like, let's do our part to not waste food, and do your due diligence to find a recipe that you could use something in, whether it be, you know, old orange peels, or, something that you could totally you could make a liqueur out of, or something, you know what I mean? So I
Ooh.
just like we have an we have an opportunity to do our part and be more aware that, some people don't have the opportunity to just waste food. And that is something else that just,
Yeah. I
if I
always
want
have
to do it. But
my it's always a week-long battle with my cilantro that's always like, "Meh," and like brown and like sagging and, you know, I feel like I'm getting a
chop
glimpse
it
into the
up.
future every time I look at my cilantro.
I
But
I love making cilantro butter. Like
oh,
like grab some heavy cream, make yourself some cilantro butter. I love that. Like also I use any kind of fruit or herbs I will throw into like a butter, or I'll make, I use it in all sorts of stuff. I had some bananas that were like literally on their way out the door, and I used them to make a banana pineapple blueberry muffin the other day. And I think that it was so good. It was so
we
good.
must have
But
we
I'm
must have been
sure
on the
people
same wavelength. Sorry to interrupt you. We must
no,
because
no.
I saw that post and I started laughing and I showed my partner because my bananas were like literally out, out the door. And he had been nagging me all week. And I kept saying, well, I'm going to make pancakes with them on the weekend or I'm going to make muffins. And they were like starting to stink a little bit. And he was like, I'm throwing these away. And I was like, no, I'm going to make muffins right now. And so I went in and I squeezed them out of their little husks and got some blueberries and, just kind of threw it in together. And he's not huge on fruits. And for whatever reason, and so I threw in some nuts and all of this stuff and baked them up. And he actually enjoyed them. And I saw your post and I was like, we were on the same page.
Listen, I love that stuff. Like that is like that makes me I love doing stuff like that. So that's what the book is about. It's basically it's called Spoiled, an anthology of what an anthology, or a cooking anthology by the Turtlecreek Foodie. So it comes out
Oh.
October 1st, and you can get it. I'll have the link. You can get it link in my bio, and also on my website. And so I'm
And
super
we can
excited.
find you on Instagram and TikTok, correct? What are your handles?
Yeah, it's turtlecreek.foodie across the board. So Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Well, Facebook is the Turtle Creek Foodie. There's not a handle there, but it's the Turtle Creek Foodie. But yeah,
Yes, and I can
that
I
is
can
where you
link all
find.
of that in our comment boxes and description boxes. But Darren, thank you so much. And if a ghost ever does come into contact with your kitchen or you or anything like that, you got to come back and share it with us. Until next time, Woo family.